This is phenomenal. Had a question for you earlier. I'm going to stick with it, but I just took that power of kindness question and the answer and what you touched on there. Just my brainwaves are just flowing everywhere. Amazing stuff.
I'm so
question
glad.
I had, question I had for you, if knowing also too that you've been working at the university level, so you've got students of certain levels. One of the spaces that I work in are high school and below, and obviously with parents, both in athletics and outside of athletics. The concept of career pathways is very fascinating to me, and I love working with young people and families on that. Just curious, when you look at taking, wrapping my head around the concept of the future of work, and you giving me this new lens to think and look at it, working with young people, say around high school, thinking about career. So the traditional concepts, right, of college career, other career pathways like trades is getting really a lot of heavy play now because of the great need there, and there's some amazing opportunities for young people there. And then the other piece that I've seen fold in even with my younger kids is, you know, when I was growing up, I did well in math and science, and they said you should apply to engineering schools. Mm-hmm. So I went to an engineering school, was there 2.5 years, ended up at the Career Counseling Center. I don't even know how or remember why, and came across a degree called sport management. Didn't know it existed. And I'm like, I got to do this. And I figured out a way over time to do that. Kids today with the phones and social media, kids 13, 14-year-olds are having access to these influencers. Some are good, some are bad. Some are putting in their head very early, you don't need to go to school. School's not the main thing to do. I'm just curious, what kind of messages in terms, especially with your core pillars that you have there when you're talking to younger kids and they're starting to think about that, and then also with the parents that might be like kind of getting freaked out about it because it's not the traditional, if you want to call it traditional thinking that they've been aligned with growing up themselves and what they've experienced.
Sure. So I think first and foremost for the kids, and I have this conversation a lot, is there is no one right thing. There is no, and if you make whatever a mistake even means, but if you pick something that you thought you were going to love and you get into it and you're like, oh my God, this is the worst, it's okay. You can always change. And anyone who tells you that there's no way to go back, or there's, you know, that's nonsense. It's total nonsense. So there are infinite right choices to make. So alleviating some of that stress a little bit. For the parents, there is no way to predict. Like, we have moved the speed of change in our world has moved, you know, in the first and second industrial revolution from an incremental, fast but incremental pace, to the digital revolution where we've had things moving exponentially, which is much faster. But we are now in a world, I call it a quantum world, or the first energetic revolution, where the change that we are experiencing is going to feel basically instantaneous. And so however we may feel as parents, the speed with which the world is changing, we cannot control what the outcomes for our kids are going to be. There's just no way. And so rather than looking to control or predict, I think it's much more effective to support our kids in learning how to be resilient. And when I say resilient, I don't mean the kind of resilient that we read about in Harvard Business Review or Psychology Today or anything else. I bring a concept to the table called regenerative resilience. Because although all of the data say resilience is the best way to be as a leader now, it's one of those key skills to develop, resilience is exhausting as it stands. And so what we want to do is learn how to, in the face of change, transform those disruptive factors into fuel to become bigger, better, more expansive versions of ourselves. So I would be focusing on how do I provide opportunities to stretch brains, to stretch thinking, to increase the ability to thrive in uncertainty and not get so bowled over by it. That's what I'd be much more focused on. I would look at things like even if somebody's going to go for a more traditional job route, how can we apply the skills of entrepreneurial thinking so that in case something funky goes wrong down the road, we've got a little bit more ability to dance with that uncertainty and to create additional streams of income that can help us hedge against sort of the financial insecurity that may or may not occur. So that's what I would focus on. And then as far as trades or other opportunities, I'm a huge fan of the idea that, up until now in the US, having a college degree was the greatest predictor of longer term financial stability or success, or whatever the term the economists use are, does not need it anymore. And so, especially if for kids who prefer to be hands-on, who have ants in their pants and don't want to sit in the classroom for 1,000 years, explore these things that are much more interesting. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's a great answer. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Wow.
the question.
Shannon,